Hello and welcome to your in-depth monthly horoscope for May 2023 for the Sun or the Ascendant. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to give a collective overview and some standout details, but then I will go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces and explore those in much greater depth. Now, if you are a returning viewer to my channel, thank you so much for joining me once more. If you're new here, it's great to have you with us. This is very much a community, so please do share any thoughts you have. I do interact with each one, and I'd be honoured if you would subscribe. Now, if you would like to ascend above zodiac astrology and get a much greater understanding of your life force and prospects, if you do give me 3 pieces of personal birth data of time, date and place of birth, I can prepare for you your life roadmap report. This will give you an understanding of the patterns that are repeating in your life, the more challenging ones, but also the ones that you can seize upon more successfully so. Gaining a greater awareness of those will help you to make greater progress, gain greater traction. And in my special package of 30% off, you can also get your 12-month personal forecast. No 2 charts are the same, totally unique to you, and can give you searing insights. If you don't know your time of birth, I've developed a new report package which doesn't include an ascendant and assumes the moon at midday, and this is based on your sun sign. And if you really enjoy YouTube videos, this will be very reflective of what your sun is. Please see below for more information on that too. Now, as we come into this very important month for resources, the economy, everyday money, the cost of living, we do have a conjunction, an exact cazimi as it's known, between the Sun and Mercury on day 1. And that could give us the opportunity, despite the fact that Mercury is in retrograde, to rethink something in a more successful way. But it is true to say that through the first 3 days, the Sun and Mercury are very closely aligned. Now, Mercury comes out of its retrograde on the 15th, but it doesn't come out of its post-retrograde shadow until the 31st. So this theme of finances is going to be quite consistent through the month. Also on the 5th, we have a lunar eclipse. This lunar eclipse is in Scorpio. If this seems to ring a bell, if we think back to last 8th of November, we had a lunar eclipse in Taurus. So this is the mirror image of that eclipse. And I feel it's going to give us a lot of clues as to how things will start to move forwards in terms of those economic trends. Because this one also features the disruptor planet of Uranus. In fact, in week 2 of this month, the Sun is very close to Uranus. And this is pushing us to evolve. Society and the world of work, for example, is changing at the speed of light. Trying to resist it is not necessarily going to be the best way forwards. And of course, the sign of Taurus is very much about trying to adhere to what's stable and gives us a sense of security and is consistent. And I think that could prove a little bit futile. But on the 7th, Venus, the planet which governs the sign of Taurus, moves from the quick-witted and flirty Gemini, where it is for the first week, and moves into the home-loving and security-loving sign of Cancer. And it will be there through to the end of the month. If there are any hopes to improve where you live or move or add to the family, they're boosted by that transition. It is true to say, however, that at that precise moment, Venus is in what's known as a quincunx with Pluto, a 150-degree angle. So anything around a romantic situation needs to take into account what the motives are, and Pluto often disguises those motives and uses charm or money in order to get its way. So just be conscious of that. But in week 2, we do have that conjunction between the Sun and Uranus that I spoke of before. So being flexible in our approach to resources is absolutely vital. Mercury goes direct on the 15th. On the 16th, so Jupiter moves into the sign of Taurus after Jupiter's rather eccentric journey through the signs of Aquarius, Pisces and Aries in the last couple of years. Now, Jupiter in the sign of Taurus is very positive for the economy. I think it's a much more self-confident position, and that's something to savour. But on the 19th, we have a new moon in the sign of Taurus, which is quite late, and therefore it links up with Pluto. Now, Pluto started its retrograde at the start of this month, but in this particular equation is a force for good, and also Neptune and Mars are feeding into the new moon in a very positive way. I think there is going to be better news. We all know that bonds, government bonds, have taken quite a hammering over the last few months, and equities have stood up quite well. But I think there is going to be some better news. Inflation will potentially come down. People will start to feel a bit less oppressed. Energy prices hopefully will also drop too. But the 20th does see the rather charismatic energies of Mars in Leo begin. And this is going to be really important because, of course, we've got a long journey of Venus in the sign of Leo this year, a 4-month transit. And Mars moving into Leo is quite the show-off. So if you are someone who's interested in performance, in music, amateur dramatics, you have a creative talent that you want to manifest, then this can be a very important transit. But I should say that across weeks 2 and 3, Mars in late Cancer and then early Leo is going to be face to face with Pluto. And that's not so good, I feel, in terms of perhaps the potential for increased tension around domination. And domination these days seems to be played out on the world stage by very aggressive policies to do with nationalism. So hopefully this is not going to be a spark of some kind of increase in violence on the world stage. But Mars opposite Pluto is, you know, the two ruling planets of Scorpio. This is kind of like the OK Corral, but on the world stage. And I think obviously with the potential for some big clashes in terms of cultures, that is a little bit concerning. But if there is somebody that you were really attuned to in a sexual sense, this is going to heighten the desire motivation hugely. Now on the 21st, the Sun does make its way into the speedy and quick-witted and flirty Gemini, where it will be for the last 10 days of the month. But the ruler of the sign of Gemini, Mercury, is actually forging from the 6th through to the 28th, a fabulous link with Saturn. And Saturn in Pisces may be a more thoughtful energy, and maybe one that asks us to grapple with our emotions more. But I feel that it's important to understand, you know, the past investment of time, energy and emotion or care that have gone into certain situations, and to see the benefits that those things can have in terms of the more physical plane. Now, it is also the case that the Sun is going to be forging an extremely charismatic link with Mars across weeks 3 and 4 and the last few days of the month. Now, this is going to go across 4 zodiac signs because both are going to be moving. So that's exciting in itself. The first one, between Taurus and Cancer, is very much about working with the emotional plane in terms of how we feel in terms of physical security. But once the Sun bustles its way into the air sign of Gemini, and Mars moves into the very grand and proud fire sign of Leo, I think it all gets much more outgoing and much more extrovert. So I think there can be quite a social dimension that really develops towards the end of this month. Also, the Sun forges a trine, again across 4 zodiac signs, with Pluto from the 19th through to the 24th. So some big evolutions can go on in our situations. With Pluto, it can be inner changes, or it can be the more physical world around us. But I think what we can all expect is things to speed up and become more exciting. But once Mercury comes to the end of its post-retrograde shadow on the 31st, then we're really going to be seeing a real sign of green shoots, I feel, when it comes to resources, as long as there is no big combustible event in terms of countries really getting into conflict towards the end of this month as Mars and Pluto face up. But essentially this is a month where I feel that the lunar eclipse provides a mirror for the next 6 months. So by the time we get around to the 8th of November this year, I think we will have worked our way through quite a lot of readjustments. And obviously the cost of living increase has been extremely painful for a lot of people and is not to be something that commented on in a light way. But I think as we get around to the end of the influence of this particular lunar eclipse, we really will see things starting to unwind and we get a clearer picture, and hopefully things will become a lot more affordable for a lot more people, and there'll be greater liquidity around all of our finances and a greater sense of security. But of course the sign of Taurus is not just about money, it's all about our self-worth too, and also our sense of physical security. So if there are ways that we can be a bit thriftier or make the most of food that we cook ourselves, get more earthy in our approach to life in general, that can be a great way to surf the energies that this incredible month does provide for us. Now please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces. So it's such an exciting month for your sign, Taurus. Yes, Mercury is retrograde, which does provide some challenges. Yes, Jupiter, the planet of growth, arrives in your sign on the 16th and immediately is clashing with Pluto. And yes, Mars moves into your home zone, but in so doing, that could be preceded by some intense discussions, battles of will, as Mars goes opposite Pluto in its late position in Cancer. But once it moves, perhaps it is going to be around an emotional reaction you have to a more professional situation. But let's wind back to the start of the month. For sure, Pluto does go retrograde in your sector of success. That could see you rethinking your work and worldly involvements. But also on the first day, there's that great link between the Sun and Mercury in your sign. So a flash of inspiration is entirely possible at the start of May. But it also may mean that something that's very creative could be quite fluid. And because the lunar eclipse that occurs on the 5th is the mirror image of what happened on the 8th of November last year, but Uranus is still in the equation, it's possible that you may want to start something completely fresh, but it could happen at the speed of light, or it could evolve over the next 6 months. It's also possible around a relationship situation that there could be some tensions because somebody may see something very differently to you. With Venus moving on the 7th into the part of your horoscope that's to do with how you express yourself, it does forge a very powerful and challenging angle to Pluto. So I think that your way of expressing yourself needs to really be very thoughtful, and that's difficult with Uranus in the mix, particularly in week 2, because the chances are that you could be more impulsive, more changeable, more direct, and even that side of you that really appreciates continuity. You can either be absolutely bored silly with how something has been and really want to change it, or you can have so much nervous energy that it's difficult to find what the next step could be in order to achieve that. I think once Mercury goes direct on the 15th, it will help, and Jupiter's arrival, despite the challenge of Pluto, definitely can enable you to really grow and move into your most innate qualities in the months ahead. And it's a glorious new moon in your sign on the 19th because it's supported in so many different ways by Mars, by Neptune, and by Pluto too. But on the 20th, Mars does move into Leo, And the only thing I would say to you about that is that over the following 11 days, just be careful that you're not reacting to things in a hostile way, more from instinct rather than examining the actual facts. Also, the arrival of the Sun on the 21st into Gemini, that forges a great angle to Pluto. And I think if you are wanting to reshape your financial landscape, that can be very, very helpful. And of course, for everybody, this can be a month where things start to sort of get a bit clearer about the overall financial situation. And it's undoubtedly the case that the Sun's very lively link to Mars can give you a lot of drive towards the end of this month, but especially if you're wanting to live somewhere else or repurpose your home or make some physical improvements to it, it really can see you have a lot of motivation. And the Sun's angle to Pluto does point towards some big evolutions, even around where you might live. I think that some Taurus people could consider that. So if you're someone who's very much a sticker rather than a twister, I think this is a month when you can come under quite a lot of pressure to actually make some change, and staying as you are may not be an option. But if you're someone who's got some Gemini or Aries in your natal horoscope, this can be a truly exciting month, lit up with lots of glittering possibilities, and your natural penchant for just going with the flow can definitely be enhanced quite a lot.